Hey everybody, I am here with my favorite lender, Matt Boyce. And
I'm her only lender. So by
yes,
default,
he's
favorite.
my only lender. I'm his favorite agent. So Tara, Simit, Sam, you're all watching this. I'm sorry to tell you this here, but anyway, we're here to talk about appraisals because I'm talking about it constantly with my agents. What does it mean? The agent's asking if my buyer is willing to cover the appraisal. What does that mean? And why are things not appraising? So I really wanted Matt to come on here because I'm having this conversation every day and I'm explaining it all the time. I wanted him to kind of explain it from a lender's standpoint, what that means, and can a buyer be willing to cover it, and what does that look like if it does come in low? So
Yeah.
You're on, Matt. Talk about appraisals. So fun.
You got it. Yeah, there's been a lot of confusion, especially with such a hot market. And let's be real, we've never seen a market like this. Back in it, the last time I guess I can equate this would be back in the mid 2000s when we had, a feeding frenzy, from, I don't know, 2002, 3 until 07, 08, and then we had the crash. The difference between then and now is back then, our appraisal rules were super relaxed. I mean, I'm going to be real. I'd take some appraisers out to lunch, or we maybe get a couple drinks here and there. We were all good friends. We all knew each other. And then we did what we had to do to get the value up. And really the rules were so relaxed. It's not like we were doing anything wrong. There was nothing forbidding me from calling an appraiser like you guys would call an inspector. You had your favorite inspectors. We had our favorite appraisers. So it was a little too insider. And the reason for the bubble was these values just got away from us, right? So since 08 and 09, they put new guidelines in place, and it's forbidding the appraiser to go crazy with these values, where you have market value, which all you guys live in that world, and you're thinking, what's the house going to be worth in the future? And then you have appraised value, and the appraiser has to live in the past. They have to live it with comps that have already settled. Yes, they can use active comps, active listings, but they can't weigh them as heavily. So they're looking at past comps, and if they don't have the ones to support your value, even though we know all day long we're going to be able to get it now and moving forward, that's where the problem ends up. And with offers coming in so far above asking price, that's where we're having a problem and making up that difference. That's what you're talking about, right, Mary?
That's what I'm talking about. And it's one thing about making up the difference once we're already under contract and now the appraiser comes back and it's low, then we can have that conversation and it's a little less pressure, right? Because we have one buyer, we're under contract, and now we're talking about a low appraisal, and how are we gonna make it work? Is the seller gonna come down? Is the buyer gonna bring it out of pocket? Are we gonna split it? So that any of those things could happen, or it could fall apart, right? Any of those things. The part where it's really stressful is I have a listing that has 30 offers on it.
Right.
And now, or one of my agents is putting an offer in on a listing that has, 30 offers on it. And the listing agent's saying, hey, what's your buyer going to do if it comes in and under appraises? And they're wanting that information up front, and they're wanting them to say up front, put their money where their mouth is. You want to pay $50,000 over asking? When it doesn't appraise, are you still going to pay that? So that's where I think the biggest challenge is now.
Yeah. So if we have $100,000 purchase price, in the end, let's say that's what we agree on, and the appraisal comes in at 90, they're making up dollar for dollar that difference before we even talk about down payment or any of the mortgage stuff. So they're gonna pay $10,000 out of pocket to cover the difference. Then let's say they're putting 10% down. They're going to put 10% down on the 90,000. So that's all you have to know is whatever the difference is between purchase price and appraised value, they have to bridge that gap, whatever they end up with. So if the seller's going to come down, and the buyer is going to make up that difference, that's great. But these days, the seller doesn't want to come down, and the listing agents like you know, this is crazy. There's no way this is going to comp out. There's no way this appraisal is going to come in where it is. So that's why having a buyer that's able to put 20% down or more, think about this. Let's say they're a 20% down buyer and they want to make up the difference. Well, they have the money. Maybe now they're not a 20% down buyer. Maybe they're using a portion of that cash to make up the difference. Then they maybe put 10% down or 15% down or 5%. So there's a way that we can work with them and figure out a way to cover that difference along with still making the mortgage work for them.
Right. So just to clarify, it doesn't have to appraise for the amount of the loan. It has to appraise for the amount of the purchase price, right? So if they are conventional 10%, a lot of times I'll hear people say, well, it only has to appraise for 90,000 if it's 100,000. No, it has to appraise for 100,000.
Yeah.
And they're putting 10% down.
Yeah, I don't know where people get that from. It
all
has nothing to do with the loan. We go off of the appraised value or the purchase price, whatever's less. So vice versa, if you have a $100,000 property and it appraises for 150, we're now not all of a sudden going to lend on 150 and give them money back. You know, we're going to go off the lesser of the two. The other thing is, and I just made a video on this, which of course you can share with everyone. If you guys want to go to my Facebook, my Instagram, Garden State Home Loans Instagram, it's all on there. But I talked about ROVs, reconsideration of value. So look, the value, the appraised value is the opinion of that appraiser. So if you don't have me as a lender, we have a pool of appraisers, people that I've been working with for 10 plus years. We trust them. We know their pros. More importantly, if the value comes in low, they're willing to work with the buyer and listing agent in order to get that value as high as possible. In the end, once all parties can agree, this is probably as high as we're getting this value, then you can really negotiate. Then maybe the seller comes down, the buyer makes up the difference. But if you're working with a bigger bank or an online bank like Quicken or whoever, they don't care. So they're going to send an appraiser out. They don't care if they're from North Jersey, from Pennsylvania, down the shore. They might not know the area at all. They come in super low, 20 grand low, and they're not going to do that reconsideration of value. Now your buyer has to make up the full 20 grand instead of having a shot at getting that value up, maybe splitting the difference at 10, and that way it's not that much money out of their pocket.
That makes sense. So just one last question. How do we have this conversation with our buyers in advance for this, right? So because that's really the part that's a challenge. Because now we're saying, yes, you saw this house, you love it, it's 250,000, except you're not going to get it for 250. You might actually have to go up for 300,000.
Yeah,
and actually, you might also have to accept it in as-is condition, and now you have to also put money up to cover the appraised value if you want any shot at winning. Yeah. And that's a real conversation that we're having now. Well, and the buyers are like, wait, what?
I think that part of the biggest secret is right in the beginning when we're pre-approving these people and you're doing a buyer's consultation. I think both should go hand in hand. We pre-approve them first, and if you've worked with us, you know that we issue a pre-approval blueprint, which is just like, look, you have 100 grand in assets, of which you're comfortable maybe putting 50 grand out because you want that reserve. But now you as the agent know they have 100 grand. So you go, hey, listen, in a perfect world, you would have 50 grand in reserve, 50 grand going towards the house, but you're going to have to potentially dip into that extra money, that reserve, if you want this house. So assets are a big thing, and setting the expectation properly up front so they know, okay, I'm going to have to come out of pocket a lot more than I want, but do I want the house or do I want to live in my mom's basement? I mean,
and maybe I don't have to, but right now I have to just agree to it because what's happening is the listing agents don't want to talk about it later.
Right. Yeah.
They don't want to talk about it later. I know. I'm a listing agent. I don't want to talk about it later. You want to go 50,000 over asking. I want to make sure that you can pay for that. So it's just a lot. It's a lot of information for buyers right now, and it's a hard market for them.
Also, and we can tease everybody with the description. Hey, watch to the end because that's like an awesome tip Matt's going to give you. But we appraisal waivers, and again, another thing I did in my video. So if we're going to put an offer in and we have a 20% down buyer, really good shot at us getting an appraisal waiver. So appraisal waiver is issued by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're the governing bodies of mortgages, right? And all it doesn't matter who the lender is, although some lenders don't acknowledge appraisal waivers. They don't even allow them. It's just their thing. But that's just lender to lender. It's not given by that lender. We run it through an automated system. It tells us, okay, based on the strength of the buyer, based on that address, that specific address you're putting an offer in, we have an appraisal waiver. And it's great because if you put that offer in with a waiver, we don't have to worry about it. I will tell you, it's like an art form. Getting the system to trigger an appraisal waiver isn't something, again, you could trust the Quicken Loans to because you got someone just plugging numbers away they don't really know. There's ways that we can maybe lower the purchase price or raise the amount they're putting down or change certain things in there to trigger that waiver. So if they're going 30 grand over asking, maybe it's not going to trigger. Maybe the trigger is 20 grand over asking. And now we have an appraisal waiver. We know we're good at that moment, and then they can make up that extra 10 grand. So
do you automatically do that, or do we have to ask you to do that? I actually don't know this answer.
we were doing it more and more, and you got to tell us if you feel like if there's 30 offers in and it's super competitive, it's something we do. My guys are automatically doing it just to try to help out. If it's a 5% or 3% down buyer, we're not going to get it. It's a conventional loan only. FHA doesn't do it. So it's completely out. But if we have a 20% down buyer and it's a competitive situation, we'll automatically do it for you.
Awesome. That's another big deal. And you've done it for me in the past and it's helped. So
works out great. Yeah. We love appraisal waivers. So it's, so yeah, those are the tips. Appraisals right now are the big topic because again, these appraisers are all over. They're busy. They're stressed out. They have more work that they know what to do with. We're throwing $100, $200 at them to get these appraisals in quicker. It doesn't even matter because they physically can't do more. So sometimes it's taken 2-3 weeks to get these back. So, I'm just saying that when you have a low value, there's a way to approach it. The reconsideration of value, making sure we can exhaust trying to get an appraisal waiver, and just being prepared with expectations set with the buyer that they're going to come out of pocket.
That's a good tip. My special tip is be nice to appraisers, right?
Yeah.
All agents, you should always be nice to appraisers and listing agents.
They're people too.
They call me all the time asking me for comps or checking on what I sold a house for. I will respond to them immediately because I know that it's not going to be long till they're appraising one of my listings.
These appraisals have been around a long time, just like us. So we're not going anywhere.
That's right. Awesome. Thanks for jumping on. And I can't promise my agents aren't going to call you with follow-up questions. They probably will, but this might be a good start.
You got it. Anytime. I'm always here.
Awesome. Thanks.